down and very autocratic, and it comes with the answers, but it doesn't understand the questions. So that's my impression. I don't think you can blame other people for non-performance when you have to really think through what are the real circumstances on the ground. Anyway, yeah.
So when we talk about learning from the people, from the grassroots level, how to live sustainably, when we talk about learning from the tribal people who have been living within the forest or within the biodiversity for millions of years, how to live sustainably, how to live within the forest. And whereas there are some tribes, like, I don't want to name them, but some tribes in Northeast or maybe in Odisha that are believed to be destroying the forest and not helping the forest. So where are we on that front, learning from the tribal people to how to live sustainably instead of, finding our own new solutions instead of living according to their rules and how they follow the environment.
I didn't actually get into this area, so I didn't say much about it, but it seems to me that the world has changed a lot, and I, for one, wouldn't want to be living in a jungle. I mean, I don't think that the tribals have all the answers to the kinds of needs I have. But they do know a great deal about things that I don't know, about medicinal plants, about how to live with nature, about how to know the different patterns of natural processes. They know a great deal about natural history. They know huge numbers of things that are of value to society. But they don't necessarily form a model of living that most people in today's world, in the 21st century, are going to find acceptable. So it's not that they have everything and we don't have anything to offer. It's that the things that tribals know and understand and value are things that can enrich our lives. But I don't think that if a tribal community wants to become more and more modernized, I would say, well, you can't do that. You've got to stay tribal. I think that's the choice that they have to make. But equally, if they want to stay that way, I think they should be given a chance to do so. Now, there are tribals that have got into bad ways and are destroying nature or resources. Basically, they've become more and more distorted. They lived for very many thousands of years in harmony with them, and now they don't do that. They've learned bad lessons from the rest of society. And there's not much you can do other than try and set a good example. We have to set an example that you have to live better. In the case of indigenous people, tribals, there's a lot of major problems in getting dispossessed. Many of the tribals in our country live in areas where there are very valuable resources, including forests, including metals, including coal, including lots of other things. And the biggest tragedy, I think, is that they don't get any of the benefits of that, and they end up by paying most of the costs in displacement, in loss of home, loss of livelihoods, and so on. And that, I think, is really the issue that we need to address.
So in the slide which you'd shown the case study about women who were employed in the paper recycling factory, I'll just, before asking you the question to get the fact right, you had said that those women, there were only 2 births.
In the factory?
In the factory, those 23 women, among those 23 women.
For 20 years.
For 20 years. And the control group had 23.
23.
So assuming that, say, to one per head, they have...
Yeah, roughly.
Roughly. So that's less than 10% of women who actually had produced. But that means 90% did not. So is that a sustainable model?
No. 23 women had... 23.
Is it 2 per head, or is it 2 in all out of the 23?
No, 2 total. No, but they'd had one or two babies before they joined.
Okay.
They had one or two babies before they joined, but they didn't have any more.
All right.
Which is the same case with the other ones. They were also taken in the same age group.
Okay.
So they they were without jobs, and during that period they had one each, one more baby each.
All right. Okay.
No, it's not sustainable if you have less than 1.6 babies. But in India we've got lots of people, so we could afford to come down a little bit. It's not such a big disaster.
So you did talk about the dichotomy between India and Bharat, and more often than not, sustainability as a discourse does come from the elite. It's usually a top-down discourse. So my question is, when we can't satisfy the lower order needs, for example, food security and shelter, to the large percentage of the masses, for example, how can we demand sustainability from them in such a scenario?
Right, that's a perfectly good question. You can demand sustainability from them in their own interest, or the things that they do in order to get their basic needs, water and so on, they have to do in such a way that they don't destroy more of the land. I talk to women in villages, and often they say, well, we used to have lots of water and we have none now. So you ask them, why not? And they say, well, there were a lot of trees in the hill there and now they've gone. And then you say, well, why? Well, in some cases it's because logging took place and some contractor came and cut them down. In some cases they cut them down for fuel wood or for materials or whatever. And then if you ask them next, why did you cut down something that you were depending on? Because they certainly know. And their answer really is that when you have no other way to cook, what else can you do? It's like eating the seed corn. You have to keep a little bit of corn for next year, but you're so hungry that you even eat that, then next year you will find some other way to survive. So I think that the poor have to be treated in a different way in terms of sustainability. It's in their own interest, but the sustainability isn't by cutting down the use of resources, but using resources more efficiently. They cut down on resources by doing more with less. Whereas for the rich, you basically have to do less with less. That's the difference.
So it was very remarkable when I saw your industry being set up, the paper recycling industry. So we as students are, we contribute to the environment by planting more trees and by throwing the spills here and there, by not throwing them here and there, and like that ways. But me as an engineer would like to set up an industry so that I can protect the environment in a way so that sustainable development goes on. And paper recycling or the use of alternatives rather than using polythenes or something like that. So are there any programs by the government of India to fund the engineers or fund the entrepreneurs to make up an industry, to set up an industry?
Yeah, I think the government works through a variety of schemes with SIDBI, with NABARD, with a number of financing mechanisms to promote green technologies, to promote renewable energy-based technologies, and a variety of other things. So there are programs. I've never been very successful in accessing them, but they do exist. And if somebody knows how to do that, I'm sure they could get a lot of support. But many of these things are actually quite profitable. I mean, because they save resources. And so even a normal bank will lend you money if your business plan is properly prepared. So that's how we've been doing it. We basically develop these technologies that I showed you, which we sell to small enterprises, and they have to put in about 20% or so seed capital of their own, which they get from their friends or uncles or parents. And the rest easily comes from the banks because the technologies we sell are all commercially viable.
So my question is regarding the statistics which are released by the surveys. So like when you talk about the forest cover, so some surveys claim that the forest cover has been increasing, but that may be due to the inclusion of plantations and all that. So in a way, that's for the profitable motive. So do you think the statistics are being fiddled up with and that really causes a problem in the awareness? People aren't really aware of the reality that way.
See, over a long period of time, over the decades, the forest cover did go down, and I think there's reason to believe it's going up somewhat now. But these statistics, I think you're quite right in questioning them, because these statistics, like Mr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia's statistics on poverty, in part change because of changes in definition, what constitutes a closed canopy forest. So that's one part of it. That when are you talking about a pristine original forest? Are you talking about plantations and so on? So to some extent, this depends on how you define what it is that you're talking about. But the number of trees on the land area of India probably is going up. I mean, I'm sure that somebody else can give you better statistics, but satellite imagery and tree censuses and so on show that we've stopped going down, and we're probably going a little bit up. But to get back to the original forest cover of India 100 years ago, that's going to take some time. I don't think we're anywhere near there.
And so, like, if you have proper defined statistics and the way they are measured, will it make the situation a little better? Because it might just increase the awareness because you have like different statistics all around. It will.
I think awareness is a very large part of it, but awareness has to be translated into implementation, and that's where in India we sort of fail. Yes.
Over a period of years, sir, there is a large scale improvement in technology of image capturing and resolution. So that has also led us to like varying figures on improvement of forest and tree cover. That technology has also to contribute to it, sir.
Of course.
We have now LIS camera resolutions as low as 2 meters apart. We can detect the number of. We can have tree counts now. We can even identify species now. So that also leads to some kind of changes in the statistics.
Yeah, of course.
But overall, sir, it's a good picture. Like forest cover is improving, though there is a tendency to change from dense forest to less dense forest. But dense forest area, they are switching over to less dense. That tendency is there, but overall the area is increasing.
So you see, when people get into arguments on this, they're talking cross purposes. They're talking about different things. The ecologists and the conservation people will be talking about dense forests, and they will say, well, it's gone down. Now, the other people, the foresters, will say, no, but it's gone up because we got more area covered. So I think we have to be much clearer about the definitions and the language. But ultimately, it's what is the forest for? And if the forest is going to be providing you with basic ecosystem services, then it has to be healthy. And the health is to some extent determined by the density, by the coverage and the canopy cover and so on. So I think we've got to be a little more careful about exactly what we're talking about. If people say in India that forest cover is going up, they're right. And other people who say it's going down, they're probably not wrong either, but it's different kinds of definitions.
So we were talking about financial resources. So do you support the idea of spending huge amounts of money on events like,
hosting international events like Commonwealth Games or say F1 race, which I'm sure we all enjoyed, but you know, I don't think we need it really, and those amounts, you know, can be spent on many other causes. So.
Yeah. Well, India is a big country, and India is a proud country, and it has to be able to do lots of things. And I think sports, if we were talking just about sports, is a good thing, and it should invest in them. But on tamasha, on self-aggrandizement, you know, macho stuff, that I don't think is much use to anyone.
Because I feel that it was more about the competition around, you know, the world.
Yeah.
That we can also host such events.
That's right. Well, you know, this is a value judgment that each one of us has to make. If you ask me, I think at this stage, after 60 years of independence, to have more poor people, 3 times as many poor people as there were when we became independent, is an indictment. It doesn't matter how well you show the world your space and your sports and your other facilities, to have as many poor people as we have is ultimately a major negative. And I think we have to address that.
So as you talked about sustainable development, and Bhutan is following that path for about 10 years now. And in India, you're talking about we have more poor people than the rich. But what I see, government of India, I'm not pointing any fingers to anyone, is still not able to supply electricity fully to most of the urban cities. I would like to cite an example. One of the biggest real estate company of India, they, you know, set up a gas genset plant. Unfortunately, their engineers miscalculated it, and they, the energy produced was of huge quantity. So they had a surplus energy. So what government of India did, they actually bought from it and supplied it to that nearby area. I'm talking about Gurgaon over here. So, but still, there are cutting of energy is about electricity about 4 to 6 hours. Same. That to Gurgaon I'm telling you. And if I go 160 kilometers to NH24 down to Moradabad, same, 4 to 6 hours of electricity cut. So the sustainable development, don't you think should first be inculcated from the government point of view, as done by Bhutan government? I completely agree that each of us individuals should come up with it, that imbibe that and move forward. Because if we go along like that, then government will see and take it as it is. So what do you feel about that, sir?
My feeling is that the reason our country hasn't made any real progress is because the my-bop of government is supposed to do everything for us. My feeling is that it is your generation that has to realize that as long as you wait for someone else to do your thing for you, it's not going to happen. My feeling is that we have to stand on our feet and we have to be counted. Now, it may be the job of the public sector, the government or whatever, to make sure that everyone has electricity and water. But they're not much good at doing that. So they've decided to privatize and do whatever other things they need in order to do this. And the private companies are interested in making money. They're not necessarily interested in delivering it to Moradabad. They may be interested in getting it to Gurgaon simply because Gurgaon is more likely to pay. But nobody, neither the government nor the companies, are going to do this unless you make the demands felt. And I think you're not supposed to set up your own generator. I'm not suggesting you make your own electricity. But I am suggesting that it is in your hands to elect a government and make sure that the government basically performs. And I don't think that we are doing that. I don't think we're making demands on government to perform. One of those performances is to indict all those people who are corrupt in the legislatures and in the parliaments and in the cabinet and get them into jail. That's what you have to do. Now, we're not prepared to do that, then you can sit back and say, it's the government's job. But frankly, this country's been held back precisely because a large number of people in our country did not see it as their responsibility, but somebody else's to take care of their problems. So I'm afraid I don't think that mindset is going to solve the problem for you. You have to say, I live here, I have a right to have these services, and I'm going to make sure with my colleagues, one individual alone may not be able to do it, but with a group of people, we're going to make it happen. And they do. Many of these places in the urban areas, like resident welfare associations, in villages, certain panchayats I've seen, are basically able to get things done. Why is that? Because they said, this is our right, and we're going to enforce it. So be careful to put too much expectation on government. It's not going to produce results. Yeah.
I also feel that we as an individual are also not exercising our rights. Sir, as you pointed out various reports, I also have read various reports, and it came to a conclusion that poverty in India is reducing. Poverty in India is reducing, and it has come to almost 5 to 8% down since what it was in 1990s to that level. Sir, but why are we pointing out at government when we are not exercising our rights? We are staying in a city, really 1.5 crores in a small area of city. So how will the government provide such kind of amenities to it in a large, dense city?
Well, governments have a lot of responsibility. But look, there are two kinds of people in the world. There are people who think people are important, and there are economists. Now, people who think they're important say that each individual has a name, has parents and sisters and brothers, and loves and hates, and as an individual human being is an individual human being. They count the number of people who are poor. That has gone up dramatically because the population's gone up. Economists, on the other hand, want to show that India is making progress, and so they like to find figures that are going down. And the only figure that's going down is percentage. But I am not a percentage. I'm a human being. My name is Ashok Khosla. I get up every morning. I have dreams. I have aspirations. I want to be counted as a human being. Well, according to the figures I showed you, Arjun Sengupta says there are 780 million people who are below the poverty line. The entire country of India in 1947 had less than 300 million people. So you can't tell me that the number of poor people have gone down. That's just not true. The percentage has gone down, but who cares about percentages? What has percentage got to do with it? It's precisely the problem. If we'd had fewer poor people, we would have had fewer population. And that's the whole problem, that we didn't invest in those people.
But we need to acknowledge the fact that the government decisions are politically motivated. It is not like a people-oriented. Decisions are politically motivated.
Yes.
There are various, government works on various areas, but it is not seen into light. But tomorrow if Anna Hazare or someone comes there and stands there, media coverage is going to be shown. How many of us, I didn't even know about Tara before I came here. But such things need to be shown into light so that people become aware. It's not just a fault of a government, but as an individual, as a society, we are not exercising our rights.
You're right. You're right. Look, it's 1:32, and I was only given till 1:30. So I'm into overtime. But I'm happy to chat with you, but I think some of you must be hungry. So I want to thank you for listening to me.